Thank you so much, Emily. That's really great introduction. Hello, everyone, and I'm going to do it very quickly. So that's the team. You know, only Emily is not there today, which is a pity, actually. Jamila said it all already, so I'm not going to do it all. But we are really at the very crossing of digital innovation and creative content. We do a couple of things with business development, curation of conferences, but also moderation. And I'm going to jump on the references we picked for you guys to go right to the core. Why are we here today? Because we are doing a big project on the European level to inquire into new ways to make business and money with digital arts from the place of digital arts organizations. So it's called Digital Intersections. No, so is it with an S actually? I don't even know. Digital Intersection. Singular. And it is all about experimenting and developing prototypes also to see how can you diversify sources of income and business opportunities for digital arts and cultural organizations, and this in a sustainable way in all three senses of the word, meaning obviously economically, ecologically, and socially. This is what we want to do, and we do this with an initial analysis and a research we've been doing. We are going to test and collect also sharing about new ideas about new sustainable business models. We are going to also create international alliances and opportunities, and we are going to deliver and disseminate what we've been doing in the next 2 years. The end of the project will be in 2025, and there will be first publications about this in September, October this year already. So in case you're interested to take part of the survey, you can still do it. It's a steady work in progress. You can scan this code. We have been already talking about this project at MUTEC in Montreal. We have special guests from Canada here. We have the founder and director of MUTEC together with Alain Mongeau and Maurice Jones here in the first row in the second part. And they are doing exactly what we're talking about also, like diversifying their business model. I will have an interview with Alain in the next session that we do when we do the workshop afterwards. Good. So, oh, sorry, I was a little bit too fast. So basically, we are inquiring at this very intersection and knowing like what is happening for digital arts organizations specifically. And I think I'm going to leave the word to Anna, because for the first time it's a work in progress, but we're going to present you the results of this survey.
Okay.
Here you go.
Hi, everyone. So before we head to the future and talk about the future business models, let's head to the past. And for centuries, if not millennia, as you all know, art was looking like this, or like that, or like that. And it was something which could survive changes of power, erosion, changes of economic structures. Actually, this painting is depicting Flora, the goddess of flowers and tulips, while this wagon is heading to a disaster, which was the fall of the tulip mania. So art survived things that had an economic impact, that came from the change of power structure. So art has been there for centuries. And now we're in a place in which I Googled digital art, and these are the results I got. So you can see it spans from new media art installations to CGI renderings to funny, colorful keyboard. And this is the concept that Google has of digital art. So just to be on the same note, today when we're talking about digital art, we're talking about different medium. Some of you may remember 2016 when AR came in, and there was like a big discussion whether Pokemons should be in museums or not. And in the last year, we've seen the development of VR as well that came into the art industries, but is also part of mainstream. This is a screen from Superhot, which is a game which has this super cool dynamics, but it's a VR game, so it's VR went into the mainstream of what we can also consider digital art, if we consider games digital art. We also had a pandemic, hey, and suddenly all these big buildings, just like the Met here, went empty, and all these museums had to stream. We've all been there, you know how it happened. But as a matter of fact, things like streaming, the Met has been doing for years, showing their contents on screens all around the world. But suddenly all this became the reality of many culture goers, if they wanted it or not. So people felt a bit more confident maybe with the digital space, and this piece by Beeple got sold for $69 million. It's an NFT that was sold by Christie's. But also we're in a place where we've all heard about AI, and it's not a blue humanoid, as you very well know, but we're in a place where we have a lot of questions being raised about the future aesthetics, about human-robotic collaboration, about IPs, and about intellectual properties, and where are we headed. And in this space of digital arts, we can have things like this, which is 6,000 light bulbs by Brown and Garrett, two artists, and it's a physical object, it's a tangible object. You can come, you can pull the light bulbs, it lights this on, it's a physical object. We can have new media installations like this, but when we're talking digital arts, we can also talk about time-based art. So it's an experience, it's a moment, it's something which is ephemeral, it's a performance, it's a person, it's a sound. And when we're talking about digital art, we're also talking about this. This is an NFT-based art by Pierre Pose. It's not an NFT that is, it's not an digital artwork that is being sold using NFTs, but it's an art piece which actually uses NFTs, the code, as the artwork. You are collecting pieces of code that are sort of these chemical chains, and when you collect them together, they bond together to create digital chemicals. And the substance that he's working on, the medium that he's using, is actually NFT and blockchain. So when we're talking digital arts, we're talking something which is spanning from physical 6,000 light bulbs to a piece of code. And when we look back at this painting of Fortuna, so this is a painting which is depicting a critical vision of society. There was a tulip mania, 17th century Netherlands, and suddenly it all went into collapse. You can see actually Flora with the flowers, but on the other side of the picture you can see Fortuna, double-faced goddess, the goddess of fortunes and misfortunes. This work is part of public domain. So one can wonder, will this piece by Pierre Pose be part of our public domain, of our public heritage? Will it survive erosion? Will it survive ecological collapses? You saw a picture of a stupa in Bhopal, next to Bhopal, that survived one of the biggest industry catastrophes, and it's still there. Will it ever be part of public domain, going over 65, 90, 120 years, depending on the public domain pieces, but it has to be there for centuries. How do we make this sustainable? And will be people willing to get these sorts of artworks? Where is the business model in that? So we've been wondering about this, and we partnered with 5 actually great institutions, each of them working from a different angle. So they are the sort of middlemen. I think I can do the joke. Actually, we have this, I'm Polish, we have this Polish comic drawing of a person saying, hey, I made an orgy, but no one came. So the whole concept of bringing things to people is to have the people to come and participate. So we have 4 or 5 institutions. 4 of them are European, and 1 of them is an external partner of Canada, as it's European funded. There's like this 4 or 5, depending on the perspective, of partners who are doing very different things. So if you're an artist, this might be super interesting for you to find out more about them. Chronique is in France, is a couple of different small festivals around the south of France who are collaborating together. They have sponsorships, programs together with big companies. So they really are looking for a way to work together, to collaborate also with sponsors. Kik is in Belgium. It's a festival which is a lot about education. They have a venue. They have a big industry part. There's Container in Croatia, which is a lot about research, politics. They have a lot of residencies. There's Signal in Czech Republic, which is also super interesting because it's a light festival. So you go to the city and it's everywhere. It's a very, very much audience-oriented festival. It's on the main cathedral. It's just everywhere. And then you have Chromatic in Canada, which is actually an event agency at the same time. So they have all the different ways to operate. And together we were trying to figure out, hey, how do we make money with art? So, I don't know how does, yes. And how do you make people participate and come to these events? And how do you overcome this narrative of capitalistic acceleration of Silicon Valley that is often entangled in digital arts when we talk about digital arts? So, the question today, and the question we had for a survey that we led, and that you will be the first ones to ever hear about in public, was about what is the model for digital arts. I will tell you a bit more about the background of this institution. We'll talk about the survey, the interviews, and also some main findings. So this is what will happen in the next couple of minutes. But let's first start with some critical focus points, we call them. So there's a couple of things you should know about digital art institutions if we talk about them, and about this whole sphere. One thing is that if you're an artist, you probably know the art system is not transparent per se. Often it's about the value that people put on your artwork. It's often symbolic value. But the digital art sphere comes from a different place. It comes from a place of collaboration and cooperation, and the fact that we have 5 different partners, and with the 6th partner on a project is pretty unique. And you're trying to figure things out together. The digital sphere is often way more open to doing things together, because this is where the very, very concept of internet comes from, back in the days, of course. Also, when you say people in the art industries, when you tell them business model, many times they would cringe. They would say, hey, business model, we are artists, we're not entrepreneurs. This is a very important question, and we don't have the answer yet, but it's also something you should know. Next thing is the question of how do we allow for experimentation? We're doing these weird things that no one did. Artists are often at the forefront, but the financing system is often very, very centered toward having an outcome. When you're making an experiment, it can burst into your face. It doesn't necessarily bring any monetary value. Sometimes the value is just the research. How do you fit this into the system? Also, when you think digital artworks, often you will think of something which is online-based. But hey, when I Google digital art, I got some funny CGI renderings. Often, digital art is something which requires a lot of tangible objects, tons of Arduinos, but also tons of electricity, and tons of resources, which are physical resources. And this is also something we'll be talking about. Also, one thing that came up is, how can you be overworked when you're working with the arts? It's just full pleasure. Well, people actually often do not have a life because this is their lives. But still, it's not sustainable. And talking about sustainability, we'll be sharing with you some more insights about sustainability and degrowth. And how do we fit this into the narrative? At the same time, we are in a very special place. Because, as we all well know, digital literacy and digital is the future of work, of economics. It's a social capital. And we have these institutions that do have this capital. So, we went to see these institutions, and we asked them lots of questions. We made a survey with 50 questions covering the organization, the activities, finances. We got some pest analysis, SWOT analysis, sustainability. It's going to all come out as a report in a couple of weeks. But now we will give you a preview of what we're working on. So it's a work in progress. So you will see the slides sometimes are also work in progress. But we have sent this to 350 organizations. And, drum roll, we got the results. So, we got over 60 responses, which is very, very generous, from 18 European countries, and also the UK, and also we're doing currently a non-European study. And all these organizations took a lot of time, which is also value, to respond to our 50 questions. We got a great diversity of responses in terms of organizations. You have to know that they were organizations. They're not individual artists. They are collectives or public institutions or NGOs or festivals. So we really wanted to talk to, I'm not sure if they are business stakeholders, but let's say organizations. And there were physical spaces, but there were also VR spaces. And working in a variety of disciplines. We also told them, hey, we know you are talking about money. You know, we are talking about your vulnerabilities. You can be anonymous. But 80% of them decided to share, which is what I was telling you about. It's a place of sharing. And they expressed a big interest in our findings, in the publications, in the toolkit that we'll be making for them, which also is very empowering to us. And we are very happy to hear that this project really resonated with the organizations. So we have some findings, a short preview of the findings. So let's start by the money.
Where is the cash?
Where does the money come from? So we had a part of the survey which was about this. So where do you think the money comes from? Do you have any ideas for how are they funded? Digital arts organizations. Yeah. So it says in the first part, it says business-to-business revenues and business. So okay. So actually, the green thing is that 70 is like it means that 15 organizations said that 75% to 100 of their revenues comes from business to business. And the other very high peak says that very few revenues, less than 24% of our revenues comes from the customers. This basically means that many organizations report they have money from business to business and not that much money from the consumers. So we were like, okay, so what's the business to business? What's your business to business? Oh, right. The business to business, in most cases, is public funding. So this is the business partner, and actually the money, yes, does come from public funding. You can see that very little money is coming from ticketing. So we're like, okay, if the money comes from the business partners, who is your audience? Who are you doing this for? And in many cases, they said that it's public at large, it's families, it's young people, it's kids. It's also art professionals, which are often part of the target groups, but it's also companies, institutions. It's an ecosystem which is very much geared toward other companies and institutions. So we asked also about the main income and monetization channels. And among those who replied, 38 organizations said, we do not sell anything. We don't sell anything. We receive fees, we sell tickets, but we do some said, 23 said we are selling tickets, but way more said we are not selling anything. So they are here just to do art. But how do you make art? So most of them said that they definitely agree that they are dependent on public grants, on your money, on our taxpayers' money. But also, many of them reported that they somewhat agree to the fact that they are good at finding ways to be financially sustainable. And they are good at finding this money. So we also made like a SWOT analysis. You won't get the whole thing, but it's about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What did these institutions report about the ecosystem they are part of? So the main strengths they reported is the human capital. These are the people who do not have a life because they are working in the arts and it's so much fun. But they have a lot of perseverance and resilience and great teams with great skills, which are purpose-driven. And despite of the fact that it's sometimes difficult to find money, or despite the fact that they are struggling, they have this purpose. They are there for a purpose. We ask also for the challenges that worry them. We got way more answers, but just to give you an idea, it spanned from the fact that people are more hyped about NFTs than concerned about climate change. And people are saying we are afraid that the Western world will collapse, to more daily problems, such as bad HR management, but also securing a new long-term lease. Melissa commented yesterday that it's very humane, and most of us are somewhere between the Western world collapsing that concerns us and being able to pay our rent. And so are these institutions. And the biggest challenges that they reported do revolve around funding, planning, and growth. And growth here has two dimensions. On the one hand, there's a lack of personnel, there's a lack of promotion and outreach. So on one hand, it's like this. Actually, on the one hand, it's lack of personnel, and on the other hand, is this promotion and outreach. They want to grow. They want to be. The problem is that they want to grow, but at the same time, they cannot grow. And they're somewhere in this place where they want to scale, but they can't scale. So let me see what the next slide is. It's Melissa's slide, as I thought. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this and handing over.
Is there one button?
To you. Yes, back and forth, back and forth.
Hello, hello. Okay, are you ready? I'm going to say the word sustainability many, many times in 5 minutes. Okay, the type of sustainability that I'm going to talk about is obviously the ecological and the social aspects of sustainability. But we can't make a difference when we're talking about sustainability. All three aspects come together or it just doesn't work. And we can start by looking at some survey results or the answers. But I kind of have to give a bit of a backstory here. We did not specifically ask people to comment on their ecological or social sustainability practices or strategies or frameworks. We wanted to see if they would come to it, if they would comment on it unprompted. Also, the survey got quite long, so we decided to leave it out so that people could actually fill it out. And surprise, surprise, not that many commented on it. We have 5 of them here, but maybe I can start by saying that something that we've observed is the ecological aspects of sustainability were way more visible in the answers. But we just heard the SWOT analysis from Anna, so here are some questions related to that and the topic of sustainability. The first one we see, everyone wants to create a sustainable and inclusive institution. That's really nice, but what does this mean? And the next questions, I think there's like this roter Faden, there's like this pattern that you will see. The key trends in digital arts that keep people excited. We see someone mentioning sustainability, we see someone mentioning the ecological impact of the production of artworks. So we see a bit more interest in ecological things, and then we see in the third question, what is the main audience interested in? What are the target groups interested in? And there we also see a mention of ecology. So again, going with the theme of trends, right? And of course, the biggest trend that was talked about in terms of digital art lately was the NFT craze that got everyone kind of into the discussions around sustainability in digital arts. And there we also see something. So we see that ecology in digital arts is a trend, which is good. So I think we all know this, whether or not we work in digital arts organizations or just work in any kind of projects. We go into a project with the best intentions. Our expectations is to have people with knowledge gather, cover the important topics, find solutions and implement those solutions. But the reality is that's just not the case. And in digital arts, we've had conversations with our partners, and what often came up was that there's no capacity in the team to have one person dedicated to this, which is kind of a recurring theme that Anna also mentioned, this not having enough people, not having enough resources to have enough people. Yeah, and I believe in every conference someone should quote the very famous Sweet D. No one has time for it. Then we can look at some of the the topics that we talked about with our partners during these partner meetings, we had a workforce to talk about their challenges, and we looked at sustainability through two lenses. First one was events, and the second one was art production. And when you're talking about events, the main question is, can events be sustainable? You're building infrastructures, you're producing waste, you're using up energy, you're having people fly in or coming with trains, but also the audience. So all of this has some sort of effect. So events in themselves cannot be sustainable, but they can be more sustainable. I'm not going to get into the solutions, because I'm not going to tell you anything new. But we did discuss that the sector to lead is the music sector. And some good tools, if you would like to check them out, were the Future Festival tools, which is kind of a self-assessment tool that we had someone present, and some good case studies called Green Festival Stories. And then we talked about the issue of guidelines and manifestos. There's the will to have better practices. There's the will to do better. But if you put together strict guidelines, there's always the possibility that you're not going to be able to follow through. So we had also one of our partners have the strategic consultation about how to make it into a greener festival, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the funds or if you have time limitations, the work's not going to get done. Another point that we talked about was if digital artworks are actually greener, this perception of digital is greener. The most basic example to that would be, do we print programs or do we have them on our phones? And there are multiple ways to approach this. So maybe we don't get into it. I think we have limited time. But an idea here was to develop a tool to assess the carbon footprint of digital artworks. But then again, can you really define fairly and objectively the metrics of sustainability within digital artworks? So you see, we have these intentions, but we can't quite get there. And this was basically my biggest takeaway from all these conversations that I had with this workforce around sustainability, is that this sentence sums it up quite well. We don't need another obligation. We just need frameworks to help us make things easier to carry out. And that's very much related to the well-being of cultural workers. Anna mentioned before, if you work in the arts, how can you ever be overworked? But there is, I mean, we hear it. If you ever talk to an artist, it's your life. It consumes you, right? This can be done by restructuring teams. For example, we see in digital art organizations that the people who work year-round do managerial roles, but also curational roles. And if you would be able to divide those, it would make it so much easier to handle the workload and stress and the management of teams. But then again, this comes back to the finances. Other than that, we realized that there's, the partners said that they would like to have more guidelines in terms of good practices for inclusion, but also to prevent negative experiences at their events and within their teams. And there are some out there, but we've realized that it wasn't the priority, so it's never been implemented. And I think this goes back to these management structures. There needs to be someone who can follow up with things. Yes, and another thing was accessibility. And with digital arts, there's a lot of ways to include different audience segments into the art sphere. For example, as you see, elderly citizens who might not be so native to digital technologies, but might need some hand-holding or an introduction, or people who just don't have access. We have one partner who's putting together workshops to bring VR to people who don't have access to it. Okay, I'm going to take a step back and look at it from a broader way, broader perspective. And this example is going to be about ecology, but I think it's very applicable to social situations, social sustainability as well. this urgency and impact. In other words, is it a quick fix or is it a long-term solution? An urgent climate crisis requires urgent solutions, decarbonization processes, but you cannot fix the long-standing problem with quick fixes, right? For that, we need systemic change, and for that, the art world historically has approached this by commissioning or making artworks, raising awareness and new narratives. Okay, so I actually want to have a note here with the new narratives. We had this nice conversation between two partners who both had one edition of their festival around the theme of ecology. And one of them had a very good result and the other one didn't so much. And it turns out the main thing was the narrative. The one with the bad result did not really focus on the storytelling because they weren't aware that this was something that the audience needs. We don't want to have these doom stories. And the other partner, they were working with NGOs within the field, so they did have more of an idea of how to take people into these stories. And what I'm getting at is, here, we need collaboration and knowledge exchange, because after this conversation between the two partners happened, we realized that there's a lot of things going on, and there are so many ways to approach sustainability and impact and change. And we all have ideas, and we have wonderful ideas, but we're all somehow separated. And I think it's interesting because in the beginning of the presentation you mentioned that we're open to collaboration. It's a collaborative state. But I still think we can bring this back to people just don't have time. And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Yeah. I would like to add a remark. I would like to add a quick remark because we are doing also a think tank on the future of film markets. And one of the guidelines in the thought was sustainability is not monetizable. You cannot increase the price of the tickets because you're more sustainable, or like. And it was something which was already in the way. And I think it is also connecting really well to this study here in the Digital Arts Organization. Because, anyway, Anna.
Okay. Okay. So I'm back from the Grotte of Lascaux to talk a bit more about the future. So we asked these organizations who are really working at the forefront of emerging technologies about what are the key trends affecting digital arts that keep them excited. So a lot was about sustainability and diversity and imagining these resilient futures. But they also talked about participative, interactive artworks, real-life experiences, brain-computer interfaces, which means that you need a brain and you need a human. So this is something which was, this hybridity is something that many said that keeps them excited. We also asked them, how much do you want to invest in topics such as art stacks or blockchains or DAOs or NFTs? And the green one is no. So you can see that in many places the no is dominant for blockchain, DAOs, NFTs. It's dominant. But the yes, the blue yes, is dominant in one category, which is new stakeholders constellations. And this is why we're doing this project. And this is why I was saying collaboration before, because they are really interested in collaborating. We had this part of the analysis, which I'm not presenting today, which was this analysis of the actors, of the networks, of the ecosystem. And we asked them, what's your position regarding competition? And you can see that the big high, how do you call it, block, says, I'm going to read it for you because it's small, but it says it's more about cooperation rather than competition. And I think it's a very collaborative space in which these new constellations are actually a trend that people are actually very excited about. And they said cross-cultural collaborations, opening to audiences, digital social networks. This is what keeps the art world, digital art world excited. Some said also AI, generative art, bio art. Some said NFT, because there were also a lot of different opinions. And some said, we approach all new trends critically. What is the key trend that keeps you excited? None. Not following trends is the only way to ensure the diversity of works and artistic proposals in digital arts, said one of the respondents. So we thought, okay, we have this survey. Some say they are excited about metaverses. Some say they're not. Some said they want to invest in NFTs. Some say they're not. So we wanted to dig a bit deeper, and we did a bunch of interviews. So we got on board Ars Electronica, which was often referred to when we were asking about this ecosystem. This was for many organizations, Ars Electronica is really a place that they are looking up to. But we also had the deputy chair of Christie's that sold the $79 million Beeple piece. And we have Light Art Space here from Berlin. And Cathy Moffat, who's working for the traditional museum, gallery, libraries, GLAM sector. We had the curator from the Venice Biennale, Michel Réac, the Serpentine Galleries. Okay, I could be, you can make a picture of the names. Also, you can take the picture of the slides. So I kept the full quotes in case you want to have the full quote, but I'm just going to be summarizing to you what they said. So we asked about sustainability Dirk Ball. We were talking about NFTs, and he said, yes, we do have conflicting interests. We are aware that on the one hand, we are opening new departments that are actually there for trading goods that are making this planet more vulnerable. But at the same time, we are trying to be carbon neutral. Yes, there is a paradox, and it hasn't been solved yet. Here's a long story. I'm going to make short for you, but it's also the original quote. It's Martin Hanzig from Ars Electronica. And he was telling us, I was going to Taiwan. They wanted me to talk about NFTs. I said, I'm going to be the party crasher. I'm not going to be enthusiastic about the technology. And he was in a cab in Taiwan talking to the taxi driver, and the taxi driver says, it hasn't rained. It's December, and it hasn't rained. There's a big water crisis. And at the same time, the same water is being used in factories to produce the components. The same water that people do not have is used for the technology artists are using for their artworks. So we asked about the metaverse, Michel Réac, and he said a very similar thing. He said, we are dependent on the chips from Taiwan. What happens when the global crisis comes to us? But he also said something about the metaverse, which is very on the opposite of what we heard from many other people. He's excited about the metaverse. He said it's another facet of reality. So we got these voices of people who are working with the metaverses, who see this transition, who see the augmentation. But you also had the voice of Martin Hanzig, again from Ars Electronica, who said, we made a clear statement about the metaverse. The metaverse has been on and off for 40 years. It's not going to change anything. People don't want to have these black boxes on their faces. So there's a debate going within the community, which is also great because we have different audiences. There are different audiences. The 4 partners I presented to you, Signal with his big monumental projections on buildings, and Container, who's working with research, art, and bioscience. So we asked also about NFTs opportunities, Christina Leipold from Light Art Space, and she was saying, yes, it's an extra way to compensate the artists. We can do crowdfunding via communities. We can advertise in the wallet. There's a potential there. So I think this quote from Dirk Ball from Christie's summarizes it really, really well. It's not about the possibilities of a new technology, it says. It's not about the AI. It's not about the metaverse. It's what's exciting to the next generation of artists that excites the institutions. And we're witnessing a very unique moment. It doesn't happen that often in art history that we suddenly have a new medium. Suddenly we are moving from cave paintings to whatever else was there, to Gutenberg. Maybe there was some things in between them. But yeah, it's a very, very, very unique moment. But also there's a chance it's going to remain niche. We don't know it. But still, it's an experiment. Christina Leipold said something also very interesting for cultural organizations, that you should hire a CTO, because it's not one artist now who's doing the artworks. They have to collaborate with neuroscientists. They have to collaborate with game engineers. Suddenly, you need these technological skills in the company. And another thing she pointed at too is also that there's a problem with the system not fitting the innovation. How do you register a DAO in Germany? How is the financial fiscal system responding to these new ways of modernization? Also, important point is who is going to collect these new pieces of work. And Dirk Bolt said that in many cases, the collectors of the futures are the ones who have big mobility. How many of you have moved through your lives? Or maybe, let's inverse it. Who lives in the place where they were born? Okay. Many of you have moved. You know how it feels to pack your stuff. And now, imagine you're going to pack your stuff and have a couple of paintings of Monet with you, or Manet, or Picasso. Well, probably an NFT is way more handy to take along. So it's a new generation of people who are there for experiences, who want to build a collection, but they are also interested in things which are light. And maybe this digital model suits this new generation of consumers. Cathy Moffat, whom I mentioned, comes from the GLAM industry. So it's a tradition. So she comes from this tradition. GLAM is an acronym. It stands for Galleries, Libraries, Archives, Museums. And she said, usually, these organizations that have the Monet, have the Manet, have the Picassos, what they don't have is the understanding of the digital world. They do not have the understanding of how to bring these in a digital world to the consumer in a different way than having them come to the Louvre or any other museum. But the digital arts organization do have it. They do understand this. They have a rare understanding of this digital society. And this is the capital that they have. The big question is what to do with this capital and how to build on this capital. So far, we have mapped the field. We have mapped the organizations. We have a lot of data I wasn't sharing with you because it's probably less exciting to have lots of digits than have a human speaking. But we have lots of data. And the question is, what do we do with this? So I'm going to let the clicker is clogged. How do I do it with the...
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to let AC tell you a bit more of what do we do with this and where are we headed.
Yes,
I don't think it's working.
Let us see.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work anymore. So let's do this. Okay. So what do we do with all this data, this mapping we've been doing? We've been also inquiring in what are the new business models coming up. And we have been, first of all, a couple of observations that a lot of mixed feelings in terms of innovation. I mean, like, what is mainstream? What is exclusivity? Between attraction and discuss, we were saying, but it is in the way of innovating. Second, big thing, platformization of culture. So what is going to come up with further platforms? Another thing which is huge is the merging of physical and virtual, obviously. And also a very sharp growth of these technologies. I mean, if you like it or not, I mean, we are asked so often, like, is it dead with an NFT? Is it dead with a metaverse? It's dead? And we're like, we don't care if it's dead. We're just observing. And if you don't experience and observe what's happening, you're going to miss the point anyway. Because if you like it or not, it's going to develop in some way. I don't know if it will be called NFT or metaverse. I don't care. But this is something which is sharply and strongly growing in terms of new virtual spaces and ways to monetize on virtual spaces. Also, new practices related to blockchain, crypto, finances are strongly coming up. And what we really notice also, and it's interesting because we discussed this in the mingling session we had just before, that there is a lot of multidisciplinary collaborations happening, but they happen out of the art space. They are happening in retail, in architecture, in audiovisual entertainment, and etc., with IT companies, but not necessarily with the art technology. And that's the art sphere. Sorry. So that's really interesting. Another thing that we found, I just have to see. Yeah. So in terms of business models, I want to show you 10 main steps or ideas that we have been finding in our research. First, tech industry as an art patron. Models like Google, Adobe, Epson, who are actually like patronizing the artists, inviting the artists to collaborate within their walls. Second thing, very strong obviously, subscription models. Everybody here will know Patreon, the Fair Art Fair for online offerings. It can be art pieces, products, services. Third, we found a lot of platforms like Twitch, like collaborative, interactive production models in the background. Art stacks, like typically like artist-led collective, so to speak, which are integrating some other capacities, competencies, and skills from the outside, very often technology. Typical idea, a typical example is Team Lab or the studio of Refik Anadol, Random International, and there are also the experiential art centers like Super Blue coming up, so that's all under art stacks, I would say. And then we have the exhibition projects implying NFT-based art, like we were mentioning, Christina Nilpop here from the light art space. Sorry, I have to think of this. Then there are the DIY metaverses or VR galleries, like Spatial, for example. And there are also blockchain-based funding projects for artists. Ed Fornieles and the Crypto Search is one of these examples. We also have like NFT and non-NFT based arts exhibitions and festivals, or non-specialized platforms like Decentraland, MetaMask, OpenSea, Nowhere from New York. They do also like digital arts exhibitions, but they also do, you know, like gigs and meetups and whatever that is, so they're not specialized. And we have the real digital art markets, like the Digital Art Fair, Feral Files, Super Rare, or also collection tools like Artscapy and La Collection, etc. So this is also coming strong, and a lot of these. I mean, I just give you a couple of examples so that you can relate to what kind of organization is that. And then we have also like a commission and rental models with subscription scheme like Sugar Glider Digital, and there are a couple of them that way. But what I found really interesting in terms of business model, I asked not ChatGPT, but in that case, Perplexity AI, what are future economy viable and sustainable business models? And basically, the AI said leveraging digital platforms and technology. That was what was the answers. And I could have been doing this through all the AI platforms to give us a guideline. So basically, these are the 10 fields of work that we have in terms of exploration of business models. And what we're going to do in the workshop following now is to present you what the partners decided to do. And well, it is a platform. And in the next workshop, we're going to, for those of you who are interested to dig a little bit more into this field, to challenge it, complete it, kill it, criticize it, whatever you like to do to work around this and to see like what could be a future of a business model for digital arts of tomorrow. And that's it. I think now we have the Q&As. And are we still in time? Yes, we are exactly on time. Wow. Okay. I'm the chief time officer. Yeah. Okay, cool. So Q&As opening to the team, myself, whatever. Let's go. Okay.
Let's go to the
slide. Yes. Oh,
we have a slide that says thank you.
Oh, we have a slide that says thank you. Okay. Thank you for coming and staying so long. Whoa. I mean, it is such an edgy topic, right? You must have some sort of kind of interest. I see a question here in the third row, so please.
Hi there, my name is Josh Hull. Thanks very much for the fantastic presentation, really interesting. My question is actually off the last bit that you were talking about, the platforms and even the suggestion from the AI. Was there any conversation around leveraging existing online game platforms and that sort of production sort of structure in being able to find a new market, a new audience, and a sustainable practice for digital artists?
Are you comparing games with digital arts in the business model approach to find target groups?
Well, there is an indie art community that has found space on things like itch.io or even Steam now that it's less gatekeepy. And it's a very different way of working. I've just found that people can pay $12 to a friend's project that they like, when if you're an artist in an exhibition, it's a very different sort of proposal for someone to buy a painting or something for a few $100s.
I mean, my first reaction to this, I mean, I'm a business person. right? I'm the first in my family to have done business, and I'm coming from a musician family, I can tell you. But the one thing I can answer to that question is, of course there are some parallels, and of course you have to define your target group and to approach them in a very specific way, and of course you will have this whole process to think on how to reach out. And we were discussing this before in the mingling part about what is the value you're offering, what is the value proposition, and we were also questioning what is the value proposition of art or even digital art. And we can say, yeah, well, it's not a value of, well, we don't do it on purpose, on it's bespoke or something, it's not a service. And we can discuss about the value of this. But at the end, yes, there is a value in this. And are you ready to pay something for it, to get that value for yourself? So yes, you would have to do the process for the who is the target group for that. I would be ready to challenge this certainly, but that's my question. I'm sure you would like to answer something.
Yeah, I'm not, it's not really a response, it's more of a comment. I think there's a great potential in any sort of the siloing and looking at other adjacent industries, and this is why I put deliberately a screenshot of Superhot, which is a game, because I think we can learn a lot once we start trying to put things into boxes. And there's this great game event here in Berlin, which is called Amaze, which on purpose is called playful media, not games. So I think once we start thinking of playful media instead of games, it really helps. And I think also the siloing is part of this capitalistic sort of economies of when you want to put something up on an app store, you have to say whether it's a game or whether it's a film or whether it's an artwork, because this is how the economy works. And I think we could learn a lot once we stopped trying to put labels, but just observe a certain ways of operating. And I think, I think it's a very, very valid point to actually look at these other adjacent industries.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. Yeah. Next question. We still have 5 minutes to go. Next question. Anyone? Now or never. Ask us anything. We're going to leave that stage now. We're going to be happy to have a break. So that's all fine. Well, then.
Yes. Hi.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. I'm sorry. I was like looking in there. Sorry.
No, fine. I just have a short question because I'm working in a project from GIZ on promoting culture and creative industries, and I was wondering, are you looking beyond Europe? Are you looking at global aspect, other countries? I saw it on one slide, but then there was no hint for me to... So you say yes.
Beyond European countries, yes. We are. We didn't present it there, but we have been going to Northern America, but we're also interviewing people from Africa, Asia, and Southern America.
Okay.
So yes.
So I would like to connect with you because we are working in Sub-Saharan Africa and MENA.
Very gladly.
Yeah,
we are totally open for this. Anyone else? Last question. It would be nice to have 3 questions because we still have 2 minutes left. I love triptychs, but okay, well, no. No? Okay, good, well.
Until someone comes up with a question, I can maybe add something to leveraging existing platforms, which might not be the exact answer to your question, but it made me think about this. One thing, this is kind of a EU-funded, or at least co-funded project, right? There was this conversation about, once the funding is gone, who is supposed to still keep the platform going? How do we make this sustainable? And I think looking into existing platforms that could be used for the idea that we're building is actually the right way to go, rather than building something new. But we'll get into that more in the workshop, I guess.
Exactly. We're going to go into the workshop. So find us in 15 minutes, right at the very end of this endless corridor. No, actually, there is an end. That this is where we are. And feel free also to connect with us, catalysts.agency, www.catalyst.agency, in case you want to connect with us. That's probably the easiest way. Send us an email. And
or just come say hi at the workshop.
Just come to the workshop. Okay, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the end of Republica. Thanks.
Thank you.